My name is Jason JROCK Houston. You're listening to Cataclysm Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.cataclysm.com, and our special guest tonight is Dragonlore lead singer Joe Lawson. How you doing tonight, Joe?
Doing good, doing good.
Now, last time I talked to you, you're still with the other band, Scream Kings, but we're talking to you primarily about your other band, Dragonlore. And so my first question would be, is Dragonlore a relatively new project, or is this something you've had in the works for a while?
Well, actually, it's a little bit of both. And we just recently finished our debut album, Dragonlore Lucifer's Descent. And it's got 10 great classic metal cuts on it. And it's going to be available January 17th, 2020 through Iron Shield and Metal Arrows Records.
What a great way to kick off the new year, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of exciting things in the works for 2020 for us. And originally Dragonlore was put together in 2001. And we played a few shows locally, and it kind of dispersed and didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything after that. And all these years later, after I built my own home studio, and guitarist Bernard Stinsky and myself got back together and started talking, hey, what about doing a Dragonlore record, And so we pursued that idea, and we took some of the songs that we had wrote from that time frame, and we wrote 3 new tracks. So that's what ended up becoming the album.
Now a lot of times when you form projects like that and they kind of fall apart, people just kind of forget about it. Now, like I said, you've had some success already with your other band, Scream King. So what got you really the motivation to get Dragonlore back up and running? It must have been very near and dear to your heart, and just kind of like unfinished business.
Yeah, absolutely. The songs and the working relationship that I have with Bernard, we have a great songwriting chemistry, unlike any other. And he was willing to do it and wanted to do it, and so did I. And the timing was right. We both had time to invest and work on it and build it up, so that's what we did. And we're super proud of it. I'm real happy. It's also the first record that I've done all the production work on.
Oh, wow.
So it was a good learning experience for me, mixing and mastering and producing the record. So it was a major undertaking, but I think we did pretty well on it, and I'm proud of it. And I can't wait to see how the metal community takes it in.
And as far as the songs on the debut album, do any of the songs date back to when you first formed the project? What did you say, back in 2001?
Yes. There's seven of the tracks, actually. We retooled them a bit, and came up with better ideas and added different things to them. But the initial ideas and melodies and the nuts and bolts of those songs were written back in 2001.
And then there's nothing wrong with that, because that's kind of where, going back, like you said, to 2001 when the band was first formed, and that's kind of where you were at that time. And the kind of interesting thing, I was kind of wondering from your perspective, compare those 7 tunes compared to some of the more newly written stuff. Can you tell when you listen to those tunes, like the difference and where you were at the time, so to speak, or does it all just sound like Dragonlore, if you know what I mean?
Well, see, that's the strange thing. To me, it all has that mystique and that magic about it. It all fits in. Nothing stands out to me like it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
To me, but that's because I'm involved in the project. Somebody else might think something completely different.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels natural. The newer stuff that we wrote works hand in hand with the older stuff. It's just, Bernard's just such a great songwriter, and classic melodies, and the songs breathe and have a life of their own. They're really great songs, and like I said, I'm just real proud of it. And one of the biggest challenges for me with this the recording process was, first off, this was almost 20 years ago, so I'm not getting any younger. So, when I did these songs, initially they were in a lower tuning, drop C. So we tuned them up a half step. So I had to adjust everything I did vocally a half step. And for anybody out there, singers or musical people, know how difficult that can actually be. Singing a whole step is a lot easier than singing a half step. So it was a bit challenging going through and adjusting those things fine-tuned like that. Yeah, but it was well worth it.
And you know what I mean? To me, a good song is just a good song. It doesn't matter when it was. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm a huge Kiss fan, for example, and you can tell the difference when you're listening to a Kiss song like from the 70s compared to stuff they did in the 80s. I mean, Lick It Up does not sound anything like Rock and Roll All Night, and there's various different reasons, different band members, different people wrote the song, but oftentimes you listen to music and it does sound dated, but it's very cool. Like, to me, a cool song is a cool does. It doesn't matter if it was written 30 years ago or 10 years ago.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with you. And there's a lot of bands out there that have done that and done that successfully. And I really believe that there's a growing process and a maturity process that needs to happen.
Yeah.
As a musician, as an artist, you need to do that, or you drive yourself insane. So. But at the same time, you don't want to alienate your fan base.
Yeah.
If your fan base says they like the earlier stuff you did, you don't want to depart too far away from that, because then you're losing them too.
Yeah, and you already got your built-in fans as far as you go, Joe, as far as other bands, Scream King, because probably a lot of fans will, when they learn this band, if they're a fan of Scream Kings, they will initially check it out for that reason alone. And let me ask you this, as a guy that's involved in both projects, when you're writing a song, how do you know, no, this is a Scream Kings song versus, no, this is a Dragonlore song?
Well, that's actually pretty easy, because there's two different writers involved, main writers involved.
Okay.
So I get together, and when I do stuff Scream King related, that's with Rafael Hernandez, and him and I get together, and that's what we work on, and with Dragonlore, it's Bernard and myself, and we get together, and that's what we do. And they're both excellent musicians, very talented songwriters in their own right, and they both have their own style. And so it's not a conflict of interest or anything like that at all. They're two different styles completely.
I mean, on one hand, like I said, you're gonna have a certain number of fans following you from other bands, but how cool is it for your perspective at when you release your debut album from Dragonlore and people come out and they're just discovering the band, they know nothing about what you did before? How cool is that? And then maybe they find out about the other band because of Dragonlore.
Oh, absolutely! It's a rewarding experience, and I appreciate every person that takes the time to listen or comment or even a like or whatever. I greatly appreciate that, and it means the world to me to be respected and appreciated, and for people to take time out of their day to give it a spin.
Yeah, and have you put up a website yet, or even a Facebook page for the band yet? And if so, I was kind of curious, what's been the response so far?
Yeah, we do have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Dragonlore Band, and it's been good. It's been slow, like I said. We haven't played any shows yet. We haven't released the album yet, so that's to be expected. But it's in the process, and the ball's rolling, and a lot of good things that we're looking forward to. So we also got a Reverb Nation page. That's ReverbNation.com/Dragonlore6, and we got a merch page at manicmerch.com/Dragonlore. All kinds of great merch on that site too.
So it's kind of exciting, because this is a band that's literally just getting off the ground, and you've never performed live. So what are your plans playing live? I mean, are you going to wait till the album drops? You think you'll get out and do a few shows prior to the album dropping?
No, what we're going to do is we're waiting. The label that we're working with is out of Germany. Okay. And so when we get a shipment of CDs and vinyl in from them, that's when we'll have everything stocked up and ready. And we're looking towards February or March. We're going to go through and do some regional Midwest shows here in Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and we might hit Ohio as well. So, and after that, there's no immediate plans, but that's our goal for right now.
And what are the chances, do you think, because the label you're on is a European-based label, that you'll get over there to do some shows?
That's an ultimate dream of mine, and I hope that comes true. And we would love to do that, but the logistics of that are extremely difficult, demanding, and I understand that from the promoter's point of view and stuff that they're doing. That's a huge risk that they take, and that's a big decision. So I understand that there has to be something there to warrant something big like that, and hopefully we'll rise to that level. And
even though you guys have never played Europe, but you're on a European label, it's kind of interesting, because I understand very much like the Japanese fans, European fans, they really love their metal and their hard rock bands, and they really really support the bands. And I bring that up because you're an American band based on a European based label. And it's kind of interesting too because a lot of the European labels have that love, like the European fans for American metal.
Yeah, they do. That's true, very true. And they just embrace their music over there. They take it real seriously. They love their metal over there. They always have. They always will. So it's a little bit of a different, cultural
thing, yeah.
Support or background, for them, and that's not a dig at the American audience.
No,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Over here, it seems like things are just so trendy and so accessible that they're constantly just shoving whatever corporate thing down your throat. That's just the way that it is.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. A band that I wouldn't really even consider metal, but more of like hard rock. Mr. Big. I mean. They were always much bigger in Japan, for example, than they ever were in America. They play a few shows a year in America, but they really make bank each year about maybe doing 5 to 10 shows in Japan, and man, the fans come out for them.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and like I said, I mean. That's an ultimate goal of mine, and hopefully we'll get that opportunity, and the fans will determine that. So if you can, get out there, give it a listen. If you like it, support it, and let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback. Yeah,
and you must get this too, Joe, even with other bands, Scream Kings, where I'm sure a lot of people just discovering your band for the first time, or parts of the world where you, like we said, you guys haven't even stepped foot in, and that's got to be an amazing feeling. Like, wow, some kid in Europe right now, or halfway around the world, place I've never even stepped foot in, they're listening to my music.
Absolutely, and that's why I do it. That's what keeps me going. People that reach out to me from halfway around the world and tell me that they still listen to my first CD and ask me if they could find my first CD and things like that. That means the world to an artist, and it really does. It really is the fuel to our fire.
Yeah. And I really tip my hat to guys like you for a simple fact that a lot of bands these days. Under assumption, because let's be honest here, like we're talking about, especially here in America, a lot of people don't buy CDs like they used to. So a lot of bands are under, they got the attitude of, nobody's buying CDs anymore. We're just gonna live on our catalog of music we got. We're not gonna bother recording or writing any new tunes. And so again, I got to give it to guys like you, Joe, that continue to put out full-length CDs, new music for your fans, as opposed to just living on what you've done in the past.
Well, thanks, and again, that's a little bit of a selfish endeavor on my part, I guess, because I get these ideas and these melodies, they just come to me, and I have to do something with it. I have to get them out of me. I get together with my guys, and they have ideas, and they just keep flowing. So, I mean, if we don't get them out, then they're lost, they're gone. So whether we do anything with them or not, or how people interpret them, or whether they like them or not, even, that remains to be seen until the public gets a chance to check it out. So. But for us, it really is a labor of love, and it's a passion. And as long as I feel that way, I'll keep doing it,
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting the fact that you formed this band Dragonlore back in 2001, and the debut album is only coming out now in 2020. And I make that point because oftentimes you'll hear people say, a lot of times you listen back to these classic debut albums, these classic rock bands, and they'll say, we kind of had our whole lives to, write the material for our debut album. And that is really true in this band's case. How do you feel about that? I mean, you've written these songs, and some of them, like you said, are 10 years old, and they're just kind of, people are finally going to get a chance to hear this band's music for the first time coming out.
I feel excited, anticipation, and proud.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. I mean, none of this was intentional.
I
had always hoped, even back in 2001, my intentions were always to pursue and get a record out and do the whole ball, the whole thing. But, things don't always work out the way we want them to. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity now that at least Bernard and myself got to sit down and hand carve carve this thing and get it sounding how we wanted it to sound, how we wanted it to portray the songs and the music, and we got it out there, and we got a good label supporting it and behind us, and we're looking forward to that. And going back to your comment about the people not buying CDs, I recently just read a statement that vinyl record sales are going to outnumber CD sales for the first time in, like, I don't remember what it was, 30, 40, 50 years or something crazy like that. And it's this huge trend, you know, and all these young kids are discovering how awesome vinyl is, and it's like, well, I knew that all along.
That's the amazing thing, you know. I mean, it's really funny, because I grew up in the age of, you know, vinyl, and then all of a sudden nobody wanted vinyl and went away. I mean, I don't even know too many people even still own a you know, phonographic record player. A lot of kids these days, a record player. What's a record? What's a record player? And then a lot of them are just, you know, discovering it. And I was talking to this one guy that was talking, like you said, about vinyls coming back, and he's like, you know, man, I don't even have a record player, but you know what? This stuff it's like it could be a collector's item. So I can't even play this stuff, but I'm gonna get it just to have it. I'm like, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, when the CD was dying for a while, it never totally went away, but I remember when they're having MP3 files and everything, and they thought that was going to be the biggest trend, but that kind of died out faster than the CD.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy, and I'm sure there's still a large number of people that like to just stream things and, you know, put it on their iPhone and go, or their iPad or whatever, you know, and that's great. That's all they want to do out of it. But to me, they're missing out on the whole experience of getting something physical in your hands and reading the lyrics, looking at the artwork, listening to the record while you're, you know, when you first get it. It's like a whole experience, and they're missing out on like 80% of it.
I'm totally with you, Joe. I mean, back in the day, it was an art form. I mean, I'll tell you something sad. I'm from I'm from Long Beach, California, but, you know, it's not too far from Hollywood, about 45 minutes away. And you know, up until recently, I was able to at least still get CDs at the local Best Buy. Best Buy quit selling CDs. Target, they just have certain groups of artists. But I tell you, most of my stuff I buy these days either off the bands I listen to off official websites, or I can find almost anything I want music-wise on Amazon, and it's kind of cool because it comes, you know, directly to your house. But I love, like you said, back in the day, even a CD, you know, getting it, reading the lyrics, checking out the artwork. I mean, just think for a minute. I don't know if you're an Iron Maiden fan, but look at all those cool covers those guys have. Eddie, and it's kind of interesting, the fact that they're a metal band, but not once did they feature the band's faces on any album covers. They had this mascot Eddie, and anytime you'd see that character, Iron Maiden. And it's kind of interesting the way they marketed the band. But again, just think if they had not had the you know, covers to do that artwork on. I mean, like you say, so many kids today, they just want it instantly. You know what, I'm not. I'd rather get the single for 99 cents rather than paying $8 or $9 for a whole album.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way that a lot of bands are going. I mean, even the new King Diamond, they released a single. Yeah. You know, and you know, they could just pretty much do whatever they want. You know, but I mean, it's a different world we live in. That's for sure. Yeah,
and. Now, funny bring up Iron Maiden, because I tell you, you sent me 3 songs that I guess are going to be on the debut album, and I really, you guys, I gotta say, you got a real fresh original sound, but I could kind of hear a little bit of a Maiden influence coming out, and what really grabbed me is you had, one of the songs is called Saved by Love. So before I even played that tune, I thought, okay, it's going to maybe be a little bit of a, maybe a ballad type or even a softer song, but I tell you, with a song called Saved by Love, and it was just as metal as all the other 2 tunes you sent me.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a variety of different subjects and different grounds we touch on and stuff there, and I was really proud of how that one turned out. I really pushed myself vocally on that, and I think a lot of people will relate to it. You know, everybody's probably had someone in their life that has meant the world to them. Maybe they lost that person, and they'll be able to relate to that for sure. You know.
And Destroyer, that was probably the second tune I liked the best. So talk a little bit about that tune.
Destroyer was one of the ones that we wrote originally in 2001.
Wow.
And the music and the lyrics, Bernard wrote all of it.
Oh, wow.
So it was already kind of laid out, and I put my own touches to it, and did it my own way. But Bernard had wrote all of that.
Now you being the singer, Joe, are you at all involved in any of the lyric writing?
Yeah. Most of the stuff I wrote the lyrics on.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a couple of tracks that Bernard wrote that were older songs that we did, and I love them. I think they were great, and I enjoy singing them. And those ended up on the record as well.
And it's great when you find a guy that you can kind of collaborate and work with, that you guys got that magic chemistry. I mean, on one hand, as great of a songwriter as you are, Joe, I'd imagine if you were the only guy in the band that wrote the tunes, that there might be a familiarity to the song. Whereas where if Bernard writes a tune or he collaborates with you, it's got different influence maybe because he's bringing his influences into the song or whatever. So
absolutely. And the unique thing about that is it's different with everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, it happens in a different way with everybody.
Yeah.
Even some guys can write halfway across the world and just send each other tracks back and forth, and you would never know. It sounds smooth and it sounds amazing. But for me, it's there really is a level of personality there that when I get to sit down in a room one-on-one with a songwriter and we get to work on stuff together, this record would not have turned out the way that it did if we just set stuff back and forth. It never would have.
And now when you and Bernard start the songwriting process for Dragonlore, I was kind of curious, does it usually start off like with a lick, or do you guys usually start with the lyrics and the music comes later? What's the process, or is there a process?
Well, Bernard's the songwriting machine, and he's on 24/7.
Wow.
I mean, he just writes and has a million riffs in his head, and always does. He's always been that way, and he's got a lot of great songs and a gigantic back catalog. And like I said, with this record, we kind of knew because we had all these songs that we wrote before that we wanted to get out.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a new, fresh approach really to the songwriting because a lot of that was already kind of done.
Yeah.
I mean, we revamped them and we changed a few parts. I mean, we did some things that we thought made the songs better. We improved them, and that's what you hear on the record. But as far as the new songs, like I said, usually Bernard will put an arrangement together. He'll get some riffs or a verse and a chorus, and we'll sit down and we'll hatch it out together and keep working on it until it's a song.
And as far as the recording process, you mentioned you have a home studio. So, what was the entire band like in the studio together, actually recording kind of as a live band? Did everybody record their parts separately? What was the process?
Everybody recorded their parts separately, and really that's the best way to do it. Unless you got a huge studio and multiple isolation rooms and all of that, and I don't. Unfortunately, I have a small, modest home and studio.
You work with what you got, and based on what I heard, I tell you, man, it sounded like something really pro quality.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Again, it's a learning experience, and it's the first record that I've done the production work on. So, I'm sure the next one I do will hopefully be even better, and it'll just keep improving. I
mean, I'll tell you. I mean, I'd imagine being a guy that's a producer, Joe, and a musician, you got that kind of magical musical lyric. Because a lot of people like me, I'm just a music fan. I put a CD on. It sounds pretty good to me. I mean, I was talking to this guy the other day. He made an appearance on somebody else's album. He was telling me it was a great experience. He goes, but then when I heard the final product, the bass sounded kind of a little low to me. And I told him, well, you know what? I listen. It sounds great. But again, I'm not a musician, so I don't have that ear like a producer would.
Yeah, and everybody hears things differently. And nowadays, that's another challenge that the musicians face and producers, because things need to be mixed and handled differently for MP3 format versus CD format versus vinyl format. I mean, are you listening to it in a $30 boombox, or are you listening to it through a $10,000 recording studio console? I mean, there's so many differences, and things will sound so drastically different compared accurate to what device you're listening to it on.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny, like you were saying, about the vinyl making a comeback, because a lot of artists, they're having like limited edition vinyl runs on their new releases, or re-releases some of their older material on vinyl now. And then I understand there's like only in the United States, there's only like I don't know where we're at, but I heard there's like 2 different locations where the vinyl are made, and that's kind of interesting. Like it's making a comeback, but it's so hard and limited right now. But it's interesting that vinyl, which you never thought would make a comeback, seems to be making a comeback.
Oh yeah, it is. It's strange. Up by me here in Chicago, there's a venue that we like to play, and upstairs they have a big store, a big music store. So we'll go up there and check out CDs or cassettes or all the different stuff they have. And the last time I was up there, all they had is vinyl.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. I mean, they completely cleared everything out of there, and the only thing that they had left in there is vinyl that they're selling is vinyl records.
Yeah, and
T-shirts.
And the point I was trying to make earlier too is living near Los Angeles, California, the heart of the music industry. It's kind of interesting that they don't even have Best Buys where you can buy CDs. Almost everything has to be online or bought through Amazon. And probably the closest record store to me is I'd have to drive almost an hour away to Hollywood, California, near Sunset, and that there's a major record store there, but you got to drive 45 minutes away. And yet in other places like where you're from, they have these cool little like local record stores. But here in Los Angeles area, they just, all the Tower Records and all the great record stores went away, and that's what I wish would make a comeback.
Yeah, that's those are the days. I mean, we're kind of lucky being where we're at. I have 2 music stores within 20-25 minutes of my house.
Wow.
That sells CDs, vinyl. I mean, any kind of thing, old collectible, great stuff. And that's really great. I love the fact that music is still somewhat embraced and appreciated and respected here in the Chicago area. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, and what do you think about a lot of these classic bands that are kind of last few years they plan out like their retirement. They plan out, okay, this is our farewell tour, and or we're like Motley Crue. They did their farewell back in 2015, and they've kind of stuck to not really doing anything much since, except for putting out that movie. But a lot of these bands, like Kiss, they're on their end of a road tour. Supposedly it's their farewell. I think The Who's kind of winding it down. But do you think bands should go out like that, like just where they plan out their retirement, or just kind of do it for as long as you can?
Well, I'm not in that position.
Not yet. Yeah.
It's kind of not fair for me to say, but
I guess as a fan,
I would say it'd be very difficult to judge that.
Yeah.
Because these guys, you got to remember, these guys aren't just doing it because they love doing it.
Yeah.
They're doing this, and this is their retirement.
Yeah.
They don't work a day job. This is their job.
Yeah.
So, I from a financial point of view, I understand why some of the guys, keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
But it's probably because they have to, sadly. There's a lot of money generated, and within their organization and their the people that they work for and they work with and all of that. And I'm not saying that they're walking around, begging for
no.
bread. It's far from that. But they have to keep the ball going. There's people on payrolls. There's things that there's commitments and obligations that they have to do. So to a certain extent, they almost don't have a choice.
Yeah, I give you perfect. I look at the Rolling Stone. I think the youngest guy in the band is 80 years old or close to it, and they're probably going to literally go out on the road. That's what Keith Richards said. He goes, I want to die on the road, and I think they might be the one band that could do it.
He's a trooper, man. That guy's a road warrior. Whether you like him, whether you like the band or not, that guy's literally lived his whole life doing this.
And then you look at a guy like Pete Townsend. He's one of not only the world's greatest guitar players, but he's one of the all-time greatest songwriters. And when you see that the guy literally is practically deaf in one ear, he's got tinnitus, and yet he still gets up on stage somehow and does what he does. That's for no other reason, I guess, than the love of rock and roll.
Oh, man's dedication.
Yeah,
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tony Iommi. The guy gets his fingers chopped off, and he glues them on every time before he gets the fingertips on before he gets up on stage, and has to go through all of that, the agony of all of that every time he performs.
And the interesting thing about you bringing that up is, from what I understand, obviously after he got those tips of those fingers chopped off, played drastically different, and a lot of people credit Sabbath as being the first kind of really metal band and having that really first band to have that metal sound. And if it had not been for that accident, there might not even been heavy metal music. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely one of the pioneers of metal, no doubt about it. But there's lots of other bands out there that kind of did the same thing in their own ways. Yeah. Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and there's been a lot of bands that don't get quite the credit the Sabbath does, but I think that they should.
I mean, Deep Purple is another band that I always loved, and they've been around probably just as long, if not longer, and. They were always bigger for whatever reason. I guess because they come from England, but they're always bigger in Europe. And it's kind of interesting. I always loved Ritchie Blackmore, and anybody that says keyboards don't belong in music, I say put on any Deep Purple album, and you look at what John Lord did with that organ, and I mean,
right, or Dio.
Yeah.
Dio used it fantastically. There's a lot of stuff King Diamond's done that has keyboards and piano and stuff in it that I think is great, very tasteful.
And then I remember listening to an interview John Lord did once, who since passed away, the keyboard player from Deep Purple, and he was saying, people say that Deep Purple was we were the pioneers of heavy metal. He goes, I don't know if I'd go that far, but I'd say we're the grandfathers of it.
Right. They were definitely at the front of that movement. I mean, if you go on YouTube right now and you look up "Child in Time," look up the first performance of that, and look at the crowd reaction. People are shocked. They've never heard anything like this before in their lives. They don't even know whether to clap or be scared or what to do. I mean, they're in total shock and amazement because it was a new sound. It was a new thing, and Deep Purple were one of the bands that did that.
Yeah. And they're going out like on 50 years, so they've really, and they're still at the top of their game. Now, as far as singers go, Joe, who are the guys that influenced you to kind of do what you do?
Well, earlier on, singers like Rob Halford, King Diamond, Bruce Dickinson, Ronnie James Dio. Those guys were the foundation of making me want to be a singer and making me want to do what I do is in a metal band. And along the way, I've had influences and friends, James Rivera and Ronnie Monroe.
Wow.
Guys like that have been great friends to me and really inspirational to me. So
and like Ronnie Dio, like I've seen him a few times with Black Sabbath. And I'll tell you the amazing thing. Nobody can deny what a powerhouse singer the guy was. But the amazing thing, last time I seen him, I remember watching him perform on stage with Black Sabbath. A little tiny guy, and you got this powerhouse voice coming out. It was just amazing to see live.
Absolutely. I seen him with Heaven and Hell shortly before he had passed away.
Yeah.
And you would never know that this guy was up there probably in agony suffering from stomach cancer.
Yeah.
And he just poured his heart out. He sounded like $1 million. I mean, it gave me the chills. He sounded so good.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I heard some of the band members after he passed, they were saying that on that last tour, he'd kind of been sick and he thought, oh yeah, that's just a cold, it'll go away, and he hated canceling shows and stuff. He hated putting people out of work, and they said he'd probably still be alive if he'd gone sooner and got checked out, but who knows. But he's another one that really gave his all for metal until the very end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He lived for it. He believed every word of it. He lived it.
Yeah, and you also bring up Ronnie Monroe. He's an interesting guy. I've never met him personally, but I've been friends with him on Facebook. I've interviewed him a few times over the years, and he recently went through some hard times with his wife passing. But I first became a Ronnie Monroe fan when he was in Metal Church, and then he went back to Metal Church and he left again. He's put out a couple solo albums, and I guess since his wife passed on, he's involved in a couple new projects. But he always had kind of a Ronnie Dio quality to what he did. But I always was I was a Ronnie Monroe fan for the simple fact that he had his own sound going too, and he sounded great. No matter if it was with Metal Church or whatever band he was playing with at the time, or if it was a solo album, whatever, he seems to always just be able to deliver the goods.
Absolutely, and besides being a fantastic, phenomenal singer, he's a phenomenal person. He's been a good close friend of mine for a while now, and I can't say enough good things about him. I mean, he's just what you see in him is what you get. I mean, there's no front. He's not putting on any kind of facade for anybody. He is who he is, and he's genuine, and he's full of love. He's a great person, man. He's a true inspiration.
I mean, to give you a Maiden reference, I guess he's a trooper, so to speak, of all the stuff he's been through.
Absolutely.
And I know you're a bit of a Maiden fan. You mentioned that earlier. I was curious. Were you much of a fan of the first couple albums with Paul Di'Anno when Dickinson wasn't in the band?
Boy, that's a loaded question. I'm gonna get some flack for answering
that.
Well,
that's your answer.
In all honesty, not really, man. I mean, they're good albums, and I respect them. But they're not my personal. What drew me to Iron Maiden was Bruce Dickinson. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's funny you say that. With that band, I mean, it just blew me away. I mean, I was just amazed and really drawn to that. I mean, a
lot of people feel that way. They might not say it, but I'll be honest with you. That's kind of the way I feel. I mean, by the time I'd heard Iron Maiden for the first time, Number of the Beast was the album at the time, and that was pretty much all over the radio here in America, and we're just hearing about this band Iron Maiden for the first time. And now in retrospect, when you go back and you listen to those first two albums with Paul Di'Anno, it's a very much different band. Like you said, every band has kind of their formative years, their formation, and even though Dickinson was in the band, they sound, if you go back and listen to those first two, it sounds much more like a punk band, and that was kind of Di'Anno's influence from what I understand. But even though Dickinson is an original singer, he's thought of as an original singer. They've done more records with Dickinson now, so when people think of the frontman of Iron Maiden, that's who they think of, like it or not,
Oh, sure. There's, and that's not like I said again, that's not a dig at the other guys that fronted Iron Maiden. They were great singers. It's just my personal taste. That's all.
No, and the fact that Iron Maiden, even going back to 1976 when Bruce Dickinson wasn't, the fact that they were getting noticed back then, that just shows you the potential that band had at the time, and look at how long they've been able to survive all these years, even with different members coming and going. There's got to be some talent in there. And then Steve Harris, he's been the one mainstay, and even with Dickinson in the band, Harris does primarily the songwriting.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why it's still got a certain sound as it did back then, but they've only progressed, I think, for the better, like you're saying.
Absolutely. Another record that was a big influence on me, man, was Fate's Warning, Awaken the Guardian.
Oh, wow.
When I heard all those crazy harmonies and melodies from John Arch, I mean, it just opened my mind. It opened my world. And I said, man, you could do all of this with your voice? Unreal. Yeah. It was a profound moment for me as a singer. Yeah,
and so I always love to ask people, Joe, like, since we're talking about Dragonlore tonight, how did you guys come up with that name? Because it's, I understand, always a very hard thing to come up with a band name.
We had just started coming up with all kinds of different crazy names, and I think we went for a couple of weeks just trying to come up with a name, and we liked that name and kind of settled on it. Yeah. And then we had Chris Verwimp, who's a fantastic artist in Belgium, design a logo for us. And as soon as I seen it, it was like we knew. It was like, oh, that's it. And a lot of bands, especially nowadays, they'll go online and there's probably 10,000 different fonts that you can get. Well, this isn't a font. The Dragonlore logo is completely custom and unique. Wow. It's a hand-painted design by a true artist, so there'll never be another one just like it. So that was one of the unique and special things about it, too. If you look at the logo, it's really cool, and you'll never find a font like that because Chris created it.
And very much like we were talking about the Iron Maiden albums earlier with Eddie and that. I think the guy that designed Eddie initially was named Derek Riggs. and he still continues to work with the band. Do you plan to continue to work with the same artist, or do you think you would like to work with other illustrators?
You know what? I would like to, but down the road, that's something that we'll discuss when we get to do another record. But the artwork on this album was done by Drake Mafesta, a real good friend of mine, and the guy's a creative genius. He did the Scream King Tyranny of the Sea record, and he did the new record, The Indomitable Spirit, that's going to be coming out for Scream King. And the guy's just an amazing artist, and I have a lot of respect for him. And if you ever get a chance to look him up online and look up some of his artwork, I highly recommend it. The guy's crazy talented.
And so, kind of like we've been talking through the course of the interview, I'm assuming you're a guy that would much rather have like some kind of neat-looking graphic artwork on the album cover as opposed to the band's photo, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, me personally, like you know, all the stuff you were saying about Iron Maiden and all of that. I mean, I grew up in that time frame, and I'm kind of cut out of that same cloth. And to me, it goes hand in hand. If you work hard and you appreciate and you respect the music that you're doing, and you put all the time and effort that you put into that, you should put that time and effort and talent into the artwork. Whatever way you have to do that. You know, to me, it's like it's a full package. You know. Again, like I said, I know a lot of kids today could probably care less and probably throw that in the garbage. But you know, I wasn't brought up that way. I wasn't raised in that generation, and I will never look at it that way. It always matters to me.
I mean, I love bands that, like you said, that it's much more than just guys in their jeans and t-shirt get up on stage and strumming their guitars. I mean, I want only not good tunes, but I want to be entertained. I love going to see bands that dress up and really look like a rock star. You know, if you know what I mean. Absolutely.
You should go out of your way. That's part of what it is, and it's the entertainment industry. I mean, if you can't capture the audience by whatever means that you have at your disposal, well, then you're probably not going to be very successful.
Yeah, and
that's part of the job.
Now you mentioned on this Dragonlore album. Being a producer as well as somebody in the band and musician, so what's that like? Not only producing yourself and judging what you do, but judging your bandmates and kind of as opposed to bringing in an outside producer, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think it's a balancing act. You know, it's not always easy. You know, you're not always going to agree. You know, the more people that you work with, there's a bigger chance that you're not going to agree 100%. You know, and sometimes what you have to do is step outside of it and ask yourself truly, what does the song need? Not what I want, but what does the song really need? You know, and some people have a more difficult time doing that than other people. You know, they get married to an idea and they just think it's, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you got to be careful doing that. You know, you need to be open-minded to constructive criticism from people, and that's something that I usually do. I'll send things out to professionals within the industry that are trusted friends of mine, and I get honest advice from them. You know, sometimes I got to go back and try something a different way or try a different approach, and it's helped shape me and make me a better singer and a better songwriter by taking that advice and putting a little more time into it, putting a little more effort into it, and exhausting some other ideas and possibilities.
It's great when you can do that. Now, as far as get back to your collaborating with your bandmate Bernard, I was kind of curious, like when he brings a tune that he's kind of primarily written, does he kind of allow you to just kind of do your thing vocally, or does he have a certain image in his mind of how the song should sound? Does he tell you, no, Joe, I want it's much heavier tune, or I'd like you to sing it like this, or does he kind of let you go in there and kind of do what you do?
He usually just lets me do what I do, but sometimes he'll have an idea. He'll say, I kind of thought this, or I kind of thought that, or maybe I think we should write a song about this, or and he comes up with great ideas. I love working with him, lyrically, musically, all of it. We blend really well together. So there's never an awkward moment with with the songwriting process. It just it's just very natural. If you put the two of us in a room together and just left us alone, I mean, we could probably put out an album every 2 weeks.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it's that natural. It's that easy.
And it seems like you and him, just listening to you talking, have a great chemistry musically and songwriting wise. So that's kind of I'm assuming that's kind of a core element of Dragonlore sound, because you guys are kind of the two creative ones. And with that being the case, maybe on the next album, would you be opposed, like if somebody suggested bringing in an outside writer, or would you rather keep the songwriting within the band?
I would rather keep the songwriting within the band, but you know, I mean, if there was a possibility to work with a professional producer, you know, or something along those lines, I would, myself at least, I would definitely be very open to that, because you only learn from that, and you only grow from that. So. And
you know, I want to really thank you, Joe, once again for remembering me and reaching out to me to you know, about a month or two ago, to get this interview set up and going, and I really appreciate you allowing me to interview you about the new band Dragonlore, because previously I've interviewed about the other band Scream King, so I'm glad that you let us in on this new project, and I'm really eager to hear the new album when it comes out in January, and do me a favor, reach back out to me after the album is dropped, and once I've had a chance to hear the final album from top to bottom, I'd love to really do an in-depth interview and really talk specifically about the debut album and the song. So let's keep in touch, okay? And this interview will hopefully be going up maybe in another week or two. Once it does, I'll be sure to let you know. You can tell all your friends and your fans and post it on any of your sites. So let's keep in touch, and I want to wish you a happy holiday season. And I guess that's it for now, unless you want to say anything else to all your fans out there before we wrap this up.
Absolutely. Likewise, I appreciate the time, and the conversation was great. And the record's dropping January 17th, 2020 through Iron Shield Records, Soul Food Distribution. The vinyl will be coming out through Iron Shield and Metaleros Records. And you can also get that online, and you'll be able to get that at our shows. So if you're online, look us up on Facebook. Facebook.com/Dragonlore Band, ReverbNation.com/Dragonlore6, the number 6, ManicMerch.com/Dragonlore. We got some t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, iPhone cases, some really cool merch and some cool stuff, so check that out also.
And final 2 questions, Joe, before we go. Now, in regards to Dragonlore, are there any plans to do any videos for any of the songs, or is that something that's being discussed?
Yeah, we plan on after the holidays working on a video concept with director Andrew Massa here out of Chicago locally. So we're looking forward to that. Again, after the holidays, we'll start working on that and come up with something for that. So be on the lookout for that as well. We'll have that out and be pushing that once we get it done.
And then final question. And you mentioned the band Scream Kings that we also know you from, and you mentioned you've been working on a new CD. Might we see a new release from Scream Kings in 2020 as well?
Oh, absolutely. We're finishing up final mixes and mastering on that now, and working on some video concepts for that also. We got a bunch of new merchandise for that at ScreamKingOfficial.com. You can check that out, and we got some song bites and clips out there, some teaser clips, so you can get a glimpse into what's going on there with Scream King, and there'll be a record from Scream King in 2020. Absolutely.
Well, Joe, you're quite the busy man these days, but that's a good thing, I think. And I will just end on this note. It was a knock at the top interview. I want you to really know that I think this Dragonlore, it seems like it's a really great story in the sense that you proved your tenacity in the sense that, like, the band was formed all the way back in 2001, and you stuck with it, and it has become what it is today, and people are finally going to get a chance to hear all that hard work you put into this project and your bandmates when it's released January 17th. So I think it's a great story that you never gave up on it, you stuck with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And on behalf of Bernard, I'm sure he greatly appreciates that as well. So we're really excited about it. We're really proud of it, and we hope everybody digs it, man.
Okay, take care of yourself, Joe, and we'll be in touch. I'll let you know once the interview gets posted in a couple weeks. You have a nice rest of your day, and we'll be talking to you.
You too. Happy holidays, bud.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.